Good morning and welcome everybody. Pongal reaffirms our commitment to coexistence and gratitude to Mother Nature. Pongal opens the door to new beginnings, new cheer and new hope in all the mystic splendor, year after year. Happy Pongal to all. Look at all those familiar faces. It's with tremendous pleasure that I welcome you to AABN's 67th webinar. AABN organizing team decided to create this weekly webinar on Sundays to gather everyone together and bond in a way that the everyday 9 to 5 does not permit. Over the next few hours, we will host our webinar that will help you hone in on the skills you have been interested in learning. But more importantly, at AABN, we will spend valuable time and every one of you so that you know your voice is not only being heard but valued. At AABN, our webinars are tailor-made to help you overcome the common pain points experienced by business owners, managers. AABN webinars covers a wide range of vital topics to grow your business and meet your objectives, no matter what industry your business is in. Our experts will help you to understand key areas and becoming resilient. These events are also great opportunities for business networking, allowing you to make connections to support and learn from other SME business owners like you. Our webinars help you to tackle all important issues that truly matter, providing answers to the questions you are asking and connecting with like-minded individuals at our online business networking sessions and start on the road to success. The coronavirus pandemic has had a widespread global effect. Startup investors, community builders, and more have moved from physical to digital, hosting discussions via webinars to help people in the ecosystem navigate their way through these uncertain times. If you are like many new entrepreneurs, you are excited about your business idea and eager to launch a company. But before you make the move, take a step back to learn from the experts on how to create and run a successful business, because making the right moves in the beginning can help you avoid major headaches later on. Mr. KrishnanVaidyanathan, founder and CEO of Finolet, will be sharing us about how we transition the business idea to a successful startup and finally a fully mature business that has now transformed the retail lending ecosystem from being traditional to digital through technology and DigiAssist. We welcome you to learn what Mr. KrishnanVaidyanathan has to say about common pitfalls to avoid when launching and running a new business and the importance of embracing mentorship to reach your goals. I would like to introduce you all to Mr. KrishnanVaidyanathan, our eminent guest speaker for today in Action Plan, the ABC of Successful Startup, our interactive business networking webinar. A digital veteran, Mr. KrishnanVaidyanathan has over 2.5 decades worth of experience working for leading banks on the cutting edge of technology. Having started his banking career with ANZ Greenlace Bank in 1991, he had the opportunity to work on information technology when digital world was at its infancy in India. He continued to work on his technical knowledge while maneuvering through the banking world. In early 2000, he moved to US to work on a data warehouse project and later returned to India to join HDFC Bank as part of the core team to launch a credit card in India. Subsequently moved to ABN AMRO Bank in 2002 with the responsibility to be part of the core team to launch the credit cards and to build and implement the credit card loan origination, collection, and fraud control systems. Later in 2005, he joined Deutsche Bank and became director and head of credit risk management for the retail bank, managed all types of retail loans and risk functions. He was instrumental and supported launch of credit cards and lending products in few other countries, including China. Amidst all the success, Krishnan, in an endeavor to empower the young India, he established an education company. For 4 years, he spearheaded distribution of software training and certification programs in association with HP, Microsoft, Red Hat, etc. on a retail model. He decided to do something to help people at large and to pursue his passion kept pushing him to think out of the box. That was the time when the idea of Finolet, India's first digital delivery platform for retail financial services, started taking shape. Fueled by his objective to give the delivery of retail lending services a new shape, Finolet was born to pursue this goal and direction. Finolet intend to accelerate the transformation of retail lending ecosystem from being traditional to digital through technology and DigiAssist, resulting in greater penetration of formal credit to the underserved and unserved segments of society. In simple terms, using technology, Finolet distribute financial products through millions of existing retail merchant outlets. Besides creating most cost-efficient platform and a system to generate and maximize the business profitability, serving the segment of society through effective delivery system also fulfills Krishnan's desire and duty of giving back to people what he got in his life, both in terms of achievements, knowledge, and experience. He will share his insights, which will contain some very helpful tips that every one of us can benefit from. So let's give a very warm welcome of applause for Mr. KrishnanVaidyanathan. I want you to know how deeply appreciative I am for all the hard work and dedication the core committee of AABN has put forth every day. Because of your incredible diligence, we have been able to organize this webinar seamlessly. Hope you have a very engaging and enriching day that's beneficial for the future of your careers and the industry at large. Thank you all, and over to Mr. KrishnanVaidyanathan.
Yeah, thank you so much. Are you able to hear me? Am I audible? Hello.
Can you all please go on mute? Thank you.
Yeah. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for the nice introduction. I think it's kind of says much more than what I probably has done in my career. But I think thank you so much. And it's always great pleasure to get connected to Annamalai University. As I said, I connect to Annamalai University over 30-40 years. So all my childhood summer holidays been spent out there. So it's kind of brings me a lot of great memories. And first of all, I think very, very happy Pongal. And I hope you and your family had a great time yesterday and all are safe and secure. And it's really nice to see, so many of you joining on a Sunday, despite being a long weekend and all that. And it kind of puts me under a lot of, responsibility to ensure that the time that you're spending now is really meaningful, right? So I'll try to do that. But having said, the kind of profile, the kind of people that I'm seeing here are much more veterans, people who probably have done the business for so many years and therefore probably understand that space far better. And there are also seen people who are really relatively young and want to do an entrepreneurship. So I'm trying to address to whatever possible extent things that I believe could potentially bring some value, right? So let me just share the screen. I'll go on and start doing a presentation. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, so I think first when we had a chat with the AABN team, and then there was this topic of ABC of a successful startup, I was effectively thinking that most of you must be thinking, saying, okay, Krishnan has some sort of a solution which he's going to share, and therefore suddenly I potentially become a successful startup, or I may launch something which can become a unicorn tomorrow, right? So that's definitely not something that I have. And if I had, probably I would have launched a unicorn every day. But what I know for sure is that whatever that we do in a startup, right, you can be successful if you keep listening to what is happening around, right? When you are an employee, probably you don't need to learn so much from the market. But if you are running a startup, it's so very critical that we keep listening, keep hearing out from the big successful startups, big founders who keep sharing their knowledges. So what I tried to do in this entire presentation is, I obviously gone through these lessons. I attended quite a few classes, learned quite a lot of lessons. So I just thought, let me put together a few of those, which I believe really helped me to rethink certain strategies that I was implementing. And that's what I'm planning. So I'm just planning to share some of those insights that I gained, which really changed the way I looked at my business, really changed the way we strategize our things. And I just hope at the end of it, whatever that I want to talk, there is at least few takeaways for each one of you, right? So something that you probably already doing, you may be knowing, it's just that you need someone to kind of reiterate to say, yes, this is something that we want to relook at again, right? So the objective is pretty simple. It's not that I said there's no ready-made mantra. It's just sharing of what we call best practices, things that I learned, and I hope that's going to help you on a long run, right? And before I even start jumping into my topics, which are like, business models and customer centricity and stuff like that, one one simple thing, people who wanted to start a company, I'm not talking about those who are already doing that, is seeing what is entrepreneurship is all about, right? Most of us keep saying right from our childhood days, you know what, I want to be a businessman or I want to start a company, right? It's like what we are saying, right? I want to be rich, I want to be famous. But the fact is, it's not like that, right? Because when you are starting a company, you are basically setting out to burn your money, right? You are setting out to burn the investor cash. You are setting out to toil for 24 hours a day, right? Without actually knowing what the outcome is going to be, right? You don't know whether it's going to be great success or it's going to be a learning for you. You don't know that, right? And therefore, you don't jump and start to become a businessman, right? You don't become an entrepreneur because you want to be rich or you want to be famous, right? So I'll just take on this from Peter Thiel's one of his video. Right. So when you decide to become an entrepreneur, when you decide to become a businessman, right, it's very important that you need to understand what the problem that you want to solve, right? Something that you believe exists is not getting addressed at large, and therefore you think you should start something to address the problem, right? So as I said, it's not about just thinking today morning and tomorrow I'm starting a company. That doesn't work like that, right? So it's about something that you felt. So if you look at a lot of founders' success stories, their interviews, they always relate to something that they've gone through in the past, like a WhatsApp, right? He talked about the fact that he's not able to talk to his father, and therefore he kind of figuring out how to invent something where he doesn't need to spend money. And there was a book my show story. So if you look at it, most of these entrepreneurs, most of the companies that they started actually looked at a problem which they believe has to be resolved, right? So you start a company when you believe that there is a problem that you want to change, you want to solve, and therefore you get into starting a company, right? So it's so critical that we understand why you want to become a businessman, and therefore what is the problem that you want to solve, and obviously take that one problem and solve it so very well, right? So that's very important to be as a basic objective or basic idea of as to why somebody should become a businessman, right? And second, obviously, I'll just open it up for the audience also to kind of think, what do you mean by business? So while we said, fine, we find a problem, we want to solve it, so you suddenly become a startup, we want to be an entrepreneur, and therefore, what do you think is the business all about? Any guesses? Is it the idea, or is it the customers, or do you think the market? So what defines the business? Or is it end of the day just about an execution? Any thought process? So I would like to obviously keep it more interactive, because I said I'm not that expert. It's not a one-way communication. I also want to learn as part of this journey. So be open, more than happy to listen.
It's an idea, solution to the problem, sir.
Okay, great. Anybody else? There's no right or wrong, so you can take a shot.
Hello, sir. Good morning. I think business is all about identifying what the customers or the market wants and then catering it to them. Actually, nowadays it's like we don't have any demand, but still we try to create demand and we give them sophisticated, where technology infused services or products before even they would think of it. We have something called as voice of customer. So I think the business people hear the voice even before the customer is even about to think. So I think business is all about catering to the sophistications of the current market scenarios, trends, technology, and the customers are kept very, very delighted. Thank you.
Sure, brilliant. Excellent.
Sir, I am Govindraju from Coimbatore.
Yes, sir.
My experience in business is you should be a solution provider to the customer.
Sure.
So that should be your business.
Yeah.
So I feel recently I have invented a new product called the Autofill Selector. This is based on a customer's problem and universal problem he brought into my notice. It made me to invent a new product. So I'm really happy I was useful to the community and to the society. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
I think that's a classic example of customer centricity, right? So you kind of kept hearing to the customer needs and could find a solution for them. That's brilliant. So we are going to cover that. And thanks, I already have a live example from Coimbatore for that, right? So brilliant. Anybody else? Great. So that's fine, right? So, that's precisely what was my response till about, I would say 18 months back. I also used to think it's about the execution, it's about the product, till I come across a class in Thai Delhi where I had listened to someone called Anish. His definition was outstanding. He said, see, if you look at the business, it's all about the people, right? It's about the customer, it's about the person who's delivering it. If you remove both of them, right, then the business becomes lifeless. You may have a market, you may have a customer, you have a product, but at the end, it's about two human elements interacting with each other, right? So at the end of it, on the business, on both sides, you have the promoter or the founder. On the other side, you have the customers, right? So it's all about the business. On both sides, you have people understanding each other, able to tailor-made a product, execute so very well that you're able to deliver the value to the customer, right? So this is something that I found a really interesting definition. And obviously, if you think about it after this session, I'm sure you'll be able to really understand and figure out much better way of running. So this is something that I found a very interesting definition of how the business is all about. But having said, I said that there's two people, right? One is the customer and one is the person who delivers the product. And when you talk about the person who delivers the product, it's about you as individual. It's about you as the founder, as the promoter. If you look at your company, it's like your child, right? You give birth to a child, you kind of nurture it. You develop the company in such a way that it reflects who you are, right? It's expression of what you believe in, right? Just say if you look at it, companies like you have Ola, you have Taxi for Sure, and I don't know how many such companies which existed. In a nutshell, all of them are giving a same solution to the customer. But then few of them went on to become unicorns, while few probably never existed after that. Because it's ultimately about the founder, it's the promoter. What he thinks is the value that he wants to deliver to the customer. What he thinks the company should become. What is that his vision for the company, right? So at the end of the day, as I said, when you start a business, you look for a change or a problem that you want to solve. Then you understand that the end of the business is all about who you are, what you believe in, what is the value that you want to deliver, and to the end customer to whom you want to solve the problem, right? So since end of the day, startup is not about just putting in money and running something. It's about owning a child, right? Bringing a dog, getting the right getting the right funds so as to make him as a person you look back after a decade and feel proud about, right? So it's so very important that as a founder, we got to really understand and realize that what you build is you're better off of yourself. So the decision that you make in the first 12, 18, 24 months was going to take the company onwards. So you don't go and change the entire design after 12 years, right? Or 10 years. So it's very important that we spend enough on more time, the first 12, 18, 24 months to decide what the way journey that you want the company to take. You decide what values that the company has to carry, right? So it's very, very important that we spend a lot of energy and time in the initial days to give a shape to the company, right? It's like us deciding what is that you want your kid to become, right? So you kind of don't decide after you become 30 years. You start deciding upfront, maybe at 6 years or 10 years or 12 years, then you kind of start providing some direction, right? So that's how the company is. So as a startup, it's a true reflection of yourself. I think sometimes we don't really relate that much, right? So end of the day, it's what you wanted to do, it's what your company is doing, right? So it's very important that we kind of identify ourselves, bring our values into the company and kind of take those decisions in the early days, which kind of helps your company to grow much faster. So that's more about the initial intro, and obviously I'll bit step into all these huge topics, and I'm sure it's like taking an MBA class, and my objective is not that. As I said, I'm not going to teach you what the business model is all about. I'm just going to leave you with some ideas and thoughts so that you can go back and start looking at those ideas and thoughts, right? So when you do a Google search on business models, right? So you kind of get to see all these explanations, right? Describe how an organization creates, delivers, captures, so blah, blah. And there are hundreds of different explanations to a business model, right? So, and obviously, we get confused as a startup. We don't know what is the right model to focus on. So traditionally, when I say tradition, it's about 10, 15 years back. Although that I understand, there was only primarily two of which. One is B2B. So you kind of serving another business, or you're serving a customer. So there were obviously completely different business dynamics. B2B probably spend long time, spend a lot of capital to get to one single product and get to one client. But then once you close the cycle, there's high probability of you be with the client for long, right? So once you step into a client with the consulting assignment, you could potentially sell him a platform. You could potentially sell him a BPO activities. So B2B business is something that I think most of us do understand. It is there in the, in existence for a very, very long time. And of course, you understand the B2C, which is very tough, hardworking business. But over 10 years, over 15 years, obviously B2C is kind of gives you far better branding and returns as compared to B2B. But having said, both the business are completely different. The way you approach them was very different. So a lot of business classes are talking about these two models, right? And then now evolved the model called push model and free model, right? So pull model is nothing but what you look at as the e-commerce, right? For example, you go to an Amazon once, and then after that you go to any site, they continue to chase you, right? Because they just want you to come to the site once and make one single transaction. The transaction can be for as low as 100 rupees, where they make a margin of 10 paise, but then they don't mind doing that. They don't mind spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees getting you onto their site, because once they get hooked onto you, right? And once you get hooked onto the site, there is very high probability that you start spending more and more, right? So there's a pull model where they spend money to keep chasing you. They don't mind spending so much money to acquire you. But in a free model, which probably 10 years back or 15 years back, if you would have spoken to somebody saying there is a business model where you give everything free, I'm sure a lot of us would have laughed at it, right? But today that model do exist. It is primarily like a Facebook or a YouTube and stuff like that, right? So they kind of measure you in terms of how long you're spending time with them. And they keep thinking, innovating all the time, saying, how do I keep the user engaged so that he spends more time, you get to see more ad of someone else, the ad of the pull model guys, and therefore I make money, right? So from a B2B to B2C, then came this entire e-commerce and social media companies, which brought in this pull model and free model. And then suddenly you now have so many models, right? So there are somebody who gives you on a sharing model, like your cars, like Rev car, you pay them monthly rental and you drive the car that you feel like. You don't need to own a car, right? And then you have freemium model where they give you upfront something which is very free, basic version to use, and then they start charging you for every additional features. So the people have find a model where they give you free and then start getting you to paying fees, right? So in today's day and age, every day that evolves, people are coming with new models, right? So gone those 15, 20 years back of only B2B and B2C, there are multiple models that is keep evolving, right? So there is no right or wrong models, but the most important aspect is we should know in our business what is the right model to follow, right? Because and I'm not saying you should always stick to one particular model. You can also try doing mix of this, like this freemium model, right? Get people on board, give them something which they feel happy about, and then move them on to a fee paying or move them on to a monthly, subscription model. So there is multiple successful stories around, right? I said this access over ownership model, I'm sure 5 years back, nobody would have thought that you can rent a car, right? You can rent a AC, you can rent a bike. Today, everything is possible because someone somewhere thought about it and said, fine, there is an opportunity. The young millennial kids don't want to own something, and therefore I want to give them this as an option, right? So all I'm trying to say is that the models keep evolving. It's very important that we look at each of these models and start mapping that to our business and figure out what is the right way and what is the right model that we should adopt, right? So my recommendation, again, this is what I did. In my first business, I never know what is the business model is all about. So we went and did something, we learned in our hard way. Then when I started the Finolet, the first thing that I did is actually we sat down for about 2 to 3 days, figured out in our business model, what are these key parameters? This Canva is available in Google, right? You can obviously do your exercise. Recommend that you do it with your team, do a brainstorming, look at all of it, and believe me or not, you'll be able to come out with a model which probably you never thought about in the past, right? Because there's no hard and fast rule on business model. Each business potentially requires a different business model. So it's very, very important that we spend that few hours or few days, look at every single aspect of it, write down, brainstorm with the team, which also helps the team to be part of your journey, and therefore kind of start defining strategies around, right? So the whole idea that I've taken up business model, I said it's not, I'm trying to explain various business model, its plus and minuses. It's the whole idea is just to make us understand that it's very important that we spend time deciding on what model that we want to follow, because today the model becomes so dynamic, so fluid. So it's critical for us to kind of take a break and look at it, right? So I'll be more than happy if anyone has anything that to ask for, any clarification or any other views. Or if you think something is not very clear, more than happy to.
Sir, this is Velayudham.
Yes,
So
sir.
you are saying the business model are not constant. It's kept evolving, and based on your experience, based on how you think want to progress further. Now I've reached a position where I'm running a business now. It's not anymore sustaining, or it's not giving me any more advantage being in the same place. I started 15 years back, but it has reached a time. It has reached a place now where I'm not able to see any progress further on this. So now I have to think on evolving. So I have to think on some ideas to propel it to the next level. Does that mean a business model evolving now within
Of
me?
course, there are two things. One, I'm not advocating a concept saying we should constantly innovate and change. That's not the case. But all I'm trying to say is the models have evolved, right? Imagine 15 years back, as I said, you would have never thought the market will be taking a car on subscription, right? The market will be potentially paying for a service which was not as big, right? For example, buying a grocery, right? You would have never thought you'll pay X amount to Dunzo for a home delivery. But those are changing, right? So things are evolving much faster than ever before. So hence the need for the existing business also to look at to say, okay, as you rightly said, it's been 15 years that I'm running this. Is there anything else that I believe I can use my model for? Classic example, I will take my own Finolet story, right? So we started our Finolet with the concept saying, I want to help the underserved and unserved. When I say underserved, unserved, people are typically our housemates or the drivers or people who don't get a loan from a bank, maybe apart from the gold loan, right? So, but on the other side, you see so many companies who are willing to give a loan to these customers. Just that both of them are not aware that someone is willing to lend, and the other guy who wants to lend don't know somebody exists. So we said, fine, let me build a pipe, use the retail outlet, start delivering the loans. But in the journey, we realized in the last 1.5 to 2 years, there is also another model exists called platform as a service. See, I build a technology for my own business to deliver a financial product through a Kirana store who is a retail merchant who doesn't know about anything about FO finance. I build a software so that he can start delivering a loan. Then I suddenly came up with a use case where someone said, you know what, the technology seems to be outstanding. Why don't you give it to me as in my NBFC so that I can use for delivering my services through my own team, right? So that's a new use case that we found. So then we go across, sit down and kind of create a model to say, okay, do you really think there's a value in it? What is the pricing that you want to do it? How do you want to deliver it? So then this entire 9 yards of talking about how do you think you should evolve the platform as a service as a model, right? So to answer your query, 15 years, do I need to look at it? Of course, opportunities are much more. What you probably built, you will not even realize the use case for that model, right? Probably when you sit down with your team and you're going to brainstorm and you look at Google search, you will be able to come out with something new, which you will suddenly see a big opportunity outside, right? Which you never thought that exists.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, anyone else or? Fine. Perfect. So brilliant. So let me just move on, right? So this is again, I'm sure 90%, 99% of us know this concept. We have been told from our young age that customer is the king, and therefore the entire business revolves around customer. Then why this sudden concept of customer centricity, right? It's there in decades. It's been there for years after years. But suddenly everybody is talking about it. Go to Google, then you find so many stories around customer centricity, right? There's so many of people talking about it. A lot of entrepreneurs who are successful are talking about it because something would have changed. The reason as to why all of us are now talking about, right? And of course, I don't want to repeat what Steve Jobs does. It's all about you understand the customer first before you build your business, like someone else said in the initial time. You understand what he wants before you start jumping building your technology, right? It's very, very important that we learn, we know the market, we realize what the customer wants. But the question is, why now, right? It's been there for years. Primarily because today the customer knows. Maybe 30 years back, right, what you are developing, what you are building in your own manufacturing plant, customer is probably not even aware of it because there's no informed economy. Today, everyone has information, right? Is much more empowered. And most importantly, you can actually personalize things for him. For example, earlier, if you're in a manufacturing company, you are building something, you are producing something. All that you can have is maybe 3 variants or 4 variants because on economies of scale, it doesn't allow you to do 100 different variants. But today, thanks to the logistics, thanks to the technology, you can potentially make a product unique to a customer. So though we had talked about customer centricity, though we talked about customer as a king, as a business, we could never fulfill that in the past, right? Because of what are the lack of science, lack of technology. But today, that's not the case. Today, the world has evolved, right? As I said, personalization is very much viable. And therefore, even today, if you continue to remain focused on our product, where the customer is much more informed, right, then there's very high probability that we are going to lose out much faster, right? So this is again, classic, the way it used to be. While we kept saying we are customers are king, most of the companies remain product centric. They always looked at having product teams. They incentivize the people who come with new innovation on the product. Most of the budget goes towards marketing the product and its capabilities. Now things have changed, right? So today people are being paid higher for understanding the customer better, paid higher for letting know the company as to what the customer pain point is all about, right? So things are evolving, things are changing. People are, in true sense, are looking at customer and they are talking about customer centric. And the obvious question is, what is the use? Why should we be customer centric, right? It's as simple as it is. If you have a happy customer, frankly, over a period of time, you don't need a sales team. It's because today the customer is so happy. If you are so excited about something, you watch a movie, you feel so good. First thing that you do is you go to bookmyshow.com and then say what, wow, brilliant. Kamala Hassan has kind of acted so brilliantly. Or, you start telling your friends saying, Machi, go to the movie because the movie is outstanding, right? So you become the ambassador. So if a satisfied customer start doing what your sales team will do. So it's very, very important that we understand the customer, we revolve around the customer needs, because of which, if you get your customer act right, frankly, you don't need a sales team. They will do the hard job of what you wanting to do, right? And again, even as we as individuals, if you look at it, as long as you believe the satisfaction level with the company is very high, paying the extra $5 or $10 or 20%. Right? It's not just about the brand, it's about the interaction that you have with the delivery boy. For example, the Swiggy guy comes and he say, you know what, Mr. Krishnan, thanks for ordering. Here is your food. Have a great meal. You feel so good. It's as simple as it is. And I'm sure I'm not already taken from that particular company. So it's all about how do you make a customer feel good? Because knowing well, a good customer, happy customer is going to take your company higher, and he is going to kind of get you more customers, right? So it's very, very important that every business start actually evolving around customers. So I just put in some of the examples as to, how the marketing is also changing the way things are put across. I'm sure in our old days, we'd have seen a fridge saying it has a child lock, it has energy saving lights, it has extra large, spacious and stuff like that. From that, today they talk about to say, it's safe for children. You don't need to struggle in the night, where is the handle is. So the entire positioning of a market in itself has changed, right? So if you look at these pictures, kind of tells you exactly how the market is today behaving, right? And on the other side, if we continue to work on a product-based approach, then we are, well set out for a potential loss, right? And it's not just one company. I'm sure there is the famous ketchup story, and there is a shoe ad which says, there is one shoe ad which says, this shoes is for the beginners. So if you want to start running, here's my shoe. Or if you want to walk, here's the shoe. And most of us, I'm sure nowadays, goes to a shoe shop and asking for saying, I want to run, I want to do my, half a marathon, tell me which shoe is better for me. So the way we ask questions, the way the company is positioning itself has changed, right? Whereas if you look at the other one, which talks about the shoes capability, saying stain-proof, antibacterial, that's a true product-centric approach, right? So it's very, very important that for us to realize that the world has changed. Customer is empowered. He is willing to pay more if he believes in you, if he is so happy with your service, and he really wants a product that matches him, right? So there's no more story of what my product can do. It's a story about what problem of yours that I will be addressing, right? So again, it's a age-old story. So how do you do a customer centricity? Of course, understand the need, take the feedback, rework on it, keep doing it again and again till you start getting the market acceptance, right? So having said, how do you know whether the customer is happy with me or not? Right? It's good to be, in our AC room, building some product, providing some service, and all the boardroom discussion talking about customer centricity, all our marketing talking about it suits for a 24-year-old kid and so on and so forth. But how do you track it, right? There has to be some metrics, something which has to tell you whether you are in the right direction. Some of it that I put together, what we call churn rate, saying out of so many customers that you acquired, how many of them has not come back, right? So again, for some business, coming back maybe once in a month, for some business can be once in 6 months. So for every business, it changes. But it's very important that we start looking at it. But why I'm saying is that even as a businessman, at times we don't look at these measures. We are too busy managing our day-to-day, right? We are too busy managing our HR payroll software. We are too busy managing our marketing collateral. Last thing that we look at is looking at some of these parameters. And as I said from the initial days, right, time, it's not something new. It's just that it is there. We know we should do it, just that we don't find time. But given what it is today in the market, this is our priority. Everything else in the organization can wait. If you are a B2C primarily, you should be looking at this parameter at least week on week, month on month, right? Without which you may be in for a surprise at the end of 6 months that things are not moving. So it's very important that we start tracking what is our churn as against the expected. And then there's an LTV, because this is a nice concept that came in few years back, because a lot of us must be wondering when Ola launched, right? Or maybe Swiggy or Zomato or somebody's launched, all of them used to give us free rides. They used to say, you know what, book your first ride, I'll get you free. Or maybe do a second ride, I'll get you 40%. So any normal businessman, right, where you look at investing 10 rupees and potentially getting a 12 rupees back, right? And then suddenly there's a Paytm who says, you know what, you do a transaction through me and I'll pay you back, which is definitely not making any sense, right? Why do you lose money to get a transaction, right? Because all of them do look what they call a customer lifetime value. You don't look at a single transaction. You don't look at to say, okay, I bought a goods worth 500, I made 10%, therefore 50 rupees profit. That doesn't work in this new age business models. I'm not saying it's applicable for all, but applicable for most of it. Where you are new in the market, you are in the business to acquire customer, then you really got to look at a lifetime value, where you lose in the first transaction, you lose in the second transaction, but then this customer is going to be with you maybe for 4 years. You know the number of transactions that he's going to do, and therefore over a 3-year, 4-year, you start making money, right? So that's something that you got to really think about to say, does this applicable to my business? I'm in a business where I want to acquire more customer, then you may want to look at this as a model, right? Third, of course, is what you call NPS, Net Promoter Score. Basically, as I said, if the customer is so happy, he is going to propagate all that you are doing. So you don't really need to bother. You don't need to have your sales. Get those 100 satisfied customers, they'll get you another 100, which obviously means we got to keep looking at it. And I'm sure most of us who are in the business probably not doing that survey ever, right? But if you see any app, be it a Make My Trip, be it whatever app that you do, when you exit, they do ask for it. They do keep chasing you, saying, please rate me, right? When you go and stay in a hotel, Make My Trip chases you, saying, please rate that hotel. Because people do believe and understand that it's the most important aspect for any business to track, right? So if you are not doing it for your business, please do so. Reach out to your own customers, ask them those few questions to figure out what is their satisfaction levels. It's fine if all of them say I'm not happy, but at least gives you an opportunity to learn and do correction. But it's very important that we track all the three. Spend the time, look at the data, put someone behind it, and figure out why there are so many good, so many bads, because that's going to help you actually be customer centric, right? So pretty critical parameters, right? Looks very simple. I'm sure most of us know all of it. We have seen it day in, day out. It's just that we probably forgot to practice it in our day-to-day life, right? Forgot to practice in our startup company. So that's on the customer centricity. Again, please ask if you think something is going above head, or if you think something is not clear. More than happy to answer. Or that it is so very clear. So which is surprising.
So this is Pratap here. I'm a 2001 chemical engineer running my eco-friendly cotton mattress business. This is a B2C business. So when we say we have to collect the Net Promoter Score, so what sort of questions or questionnaire we should ask them, how much it should be? Is there any model for it? So?
Of course, we can probably connect offline, because every business within the same industry is completely different on what questions that you ask, right? So for example, if we take the hotel industry, two hotels remain the same. One is Taj and the other one, for example, is the Oyo room. The questions are different because the target segment itself is different. So there's
Right,
no straightforward answer, but yes, we can definitely work together. We can, kind of help you put together. But I think it's good to see that you are thinking on those lines, and I can promise you that that will be a big eye opener when you get your feedback. Right?
Sure, sir. Certainly, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? It can't be so great that I made all of you understand, but that's fine. So fair enough. Obviously, you can keep your questions reserved for the end of the session. Also, no problem at all, right? So this is one classic example. Whichever class I attend, whichever lecture that I go to, I keep hearing about this company, right? Zappos. Is very well known for the customer service. Recommend that each one of you, when you find time, look at the company, look at the case studies. It's a truly a customer centric company, right? When they started, they already so many e-commerce guys. They probably started off with the shoes, but then they had only one mantra saying, you know what, I am going to serve my customer better. For me, everything and anything starts and ends with the customer. The rest all will follow. And today is a big success story, right? When you land up in the site, first thing that looks so prominent is the customer call center number. I'm sure most of the other site that you land up, you start searching for it, especially if you're on a banking site. It's somewhere hidden in the corner because they don't want you to call. And unfortunate. But here is the company which says, you know what, I want you to call. And second, surprisingly, there's no script. They don't give a script to a telecaller. They don't tell them saying, when the customer says, I want to return, you please convince him not to return. They tell the telecaller saying, talk as if it's your relation, right? Talk as if he's your friend. Bring that one-on-one personal relationship. Talk about his holidays, right? Talk about his life. So create that relationship. Don't make him feel that he's talking to a company. Make him feel that he's talking to a friend, right? And it's been a roaring success story. A lot of takeaways. I'm not saying we should be able to implement all of it. It's very tough. But there are very, very clear takeaways. Things that we probably not thought about in the past. I'm sure, it's going to be a great learning for all of us. Small things, right? When somebody calls up, they say, when you say, I want to return, they don't ask a question. They're saying, fine, no problem. I will send my logistic guy, just return it back. We'll replace it. So which in a normal business sense, as a businessman, as a promoter, as a founder, you will always try to not return because you believe taking back the product means something wrong with the company. He turned around the story saying, no, if the customer is not happy, I want to take it back. You know what? The same customer went on, told 10 different friends of his, each one started ordering, right? So that's the true story of customer centricity. Please do find time whenever you have. Go through the case studies. It's an outstanding case study, and I'm sure will give us a lot of insights.
What is the product they're dealing, sir?
See, there's an e-commerce platform. They started with shoes. And now, of course, they are into all other fashions and accessories.
Okay.
Just two more topics. I'll try to speed it up fast. This again, I think all of us kept understanding, saying product market fit. We started deciding what the model is going to be. We decided that we want to be focused on customer, and therefore we build a product which matches his needs. Right? What tend to happen, because I do interact with a lot of startup companies, most of them do believe that the day you get your funding or the day you got 100 staff in your office, you found the product market fit. I think that's probably is not the right thing to look at. It's not about getting the funding means you got your product right. The most important aspect of product market fit, to my mind, is the time that you've kind of given a holiday to your sales team because the customers are getting you more and more customers. So that's the time that I think we have find the right recipe, right product for the market, right? And it's not easy. It's ever evolving. Like one of them said, we probably realize after 3 years that there's something else that I can deliver. So you got to be constantly at it. And especially if you're starting a new company, you're just 2 months, 3 months, 6 months old. my sincere advice would be, don't start scaling up faster, right? Your first initial success, 3 months, for example, you are able to say 100 customers, then you believe it's the right model and go and launch in 100 cities, might backfire. Because it takes time. Once you launch, get a validation. And validation, as we talked about, it can be through feedback, through listening to customers, visiting them, experiencing yourself. Get the validation and figure out whether the market start accepting your product, right? It is only when you believe that the business is growing on its own, right? Your churn rate is going down. You are not constantly acquiring new customers, right? You are more happy sitting at office and seeing the business growing, right? That's when you realize that you got the product well set for the market, right? And having said, it's not as simple. It's not a simple formula that you decide to launch it tomorrow. But it's so important that if we are having our ears on the ground. As I keep saying, it's not that you launch a product and forget it and keep launching more products. It's about launch a product, go back to the market, understand, keep fine-tuning till you get your product right, right? So it's, as I said, it's ultimately being customer centricity also helps you to get the right product in the right market. So it's very, very important that we keep talking to customers, take the feedback, keep reinventing our product, right? And like one of them said in the initial thing from Coimbatore, saying, you know what, I listened to the problem of the customer, I figured out the true problem, got my product fine-tuned, and I've launched it. And believe me or not, that's going to give me a big jump, right? That's what most of the companies does it. So it's not that we think we have a product and then we launch it and keep moving and launching more products, right? So just to give my example, right? When I started my e-train India, again, coming from banking, the first product that we looked at is a certification from Microsoft. And it's a certificate called Microsoft Office Specialist for an Excel or a PowerPoint or a Word, right? So basically, it gives you a certificate from Microsoft if you take an exam in Excel. So I thought, boss, we got a brilliant product. All the parents are going to jump in joy. They'll be happy to see their kids certified by Microsoft. And then we put our own calculations saying in a month we'll do so many products, so much margin. Went all out. We could not really get the results. We thought my product is so very well positioned. There's a huge value. Kids will love to have a Microsoft certificate in their hands. We keep pushing our sales. We thought our sales is not firing. We probably haven't listened to the market. We never went out to the market. We believe the product is good. Once we realized over the 6 months that we could not really get to the volume that we want to, right? We were probably at 20-30% of what we set out to. Then we reached out, listened to people, met people, had some parents-teacher meet and all that. We realized nobody is wanting an endorsement from Microsoft on a product, on a knowledge that they believe is critical, like Excel. They believe each kid should know Excel because it's very critical in their life. They don't want a certificate establishing the fact that I know Excel. They said it's very basic. I need to know. I don't need a Microsoft certificate. But probably, yes, they need a certificate when you're learning something which is on blockchain, right? They need a certificate when you're learning maybe an artificial intelligence. So we realizing what we believe as a great product is not something that customer believes is a great product. So we had a very, very bad failure out there. But then, yes, because we could listen to the market, we started working with these IT companies, started building products, certification, which was actually addressing the customer need, right? So the whole point that I'm trying to drive is that most of the time we tend to believe what we build as a product, what we build as a service is what the market is asking for. We tend to overlook, we tend to believe that we will be successful. It's not that you will not be successful. At times it happens that you could become successful, but it's not sustainable, right? So it's very important that we understand the customer needs, build a product, launch, take a feedback, reinvent, keep doing it till the time that customer gets you customers, right? So it's very, very important that we understand the cycle, and till such time you get the right recipe, don't grow fast. Don't go to 100 different cities, invest millions of dollars. Do it very slow, get the product market fit before you start jumping, right? So that's on the product market fit. Again, this is more a gyan, saying how to do, what to do. I think there's enough for more material available in the Google. Last but not the least, hiring and building teams. Of course, the whole idea is I'm not going to teach you the HR practices, HR policies. Again, being in the corporate, being in the startup, one thing that I realize sometimes or most of the time, it's not about the people that you hired who have failed. I think the most critical thing that we probably don't think about when we hire people or when we build team is that do we have our vision clear in the startup? Because what tend to happen, right? Again, I'm saying around my own experience or people that I saw, I think an idea, I think that's brilliant. Speak to some other people, they also believe it's brilliant. You put together a business plan and start hiring people. You believe you need a marketing guy, you pick up a marketing guy. You believe you want a tech guy, you pick up a tech guy. And then they keep running because they have the expertise, they do something, but then 6 months, 9 months down the line, you realize that they are nowhere close to what you want them to do, right? It's not because they have failed. I think its primary fundamental flaw is that we never taken a time out to put together a structure for our organization, right? So it's very important for us to first realize for ourselves, what is that I'm setting out to do, right? I think that's very important that we pick up a piece of paper, write down these statements. What is the purpose? Why do we exist? Right? Like what we talked about. We exist because we want to change something. We believe there is something that needs to be addressed, a problem that we believe needs to be addressed. Right? So it's very important that we start spending time putting down all of it to say, okay, what is the purpose? Do I exist? What is the mission? Where do I see my company heading towards? What is that I want to do? So once you start writing all of it, right, in a piece of paper, fine-tuning over a 10, 15, 20 days. Therefore, when you are hiring a person, you automatically, in your subconscious mind, communicating your vision and mission to him. Right? When he comes on board, he exactly knows what your thought is. What is that you are set out to build, right? What is your vision for the company? Therefore, the team starts aligning to you, right? Which 90% of startup don't do that, right? In a hurry to launch, in a hurry to scale, we just keep getting more and more people, right? Happens in a corporate, in a 50-year-old company, 100-year-old company, you already have the culture set in, there's a vision, there's a mission. You join an organization, they spend 2 days with you, probably doing the induction, and then you start running because your job description well clearly defined, and therefore no big challenges. But when you come to a startup, it's a small team, maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 member team. And if you don't really get them on board on your values and principles, highly likely that each one runs in multiple directions, right? They may be good, but then as a team, you're probably not getting the output. I think the only big thing that doesn't happen, which I would recommend that we should do, is to really write for ourselves. Understand what is that we want to do, right? Write those statements, purpose, mission, vision, values, behavior. Keep telling that to yourself. Put it on a notice board. Put it as a poster in your organization, right? And I can tell you, the team that you will hire will start imbibing this. And therefore, everybody runs with one vision, which is the founder vision, right? So it's very, very important that when we hire or when we build, we revolve the entire story around it. Hello. Yeah. So the idea is, as I said, I'm not trying to explain the HR policies. Most of you are veterans. You know how to hire people, how to motivate them, how to educate them. But I think what most important, especially in a startup, is have this piece of paper, put it on a notice board, talk about it time and again, so that the entire organization aligns to this basic purpose of why that company exists, right? And when we talk about teams, we normally believe that it's all about the people that we are hiring, right? It's not just that. It's about the founder or the co-founder that you want to take on board, right? Most of the time, you start as individual, then you start taking people on board. You look at investors, you look at the agencies that you want to work with, and of course the employees. So it's not about, when you say building teams, it's not about just the employees, right? You got to be very clear on who you think will become your co-founder, right? It's not about money that you will get from investors. I think it's also about what kind of investors that you want. So for example, if I'm in a finance industry, right, and I'm in a distribution of financial services, I would obviously love to have someone who has done that in the past, or love to have someone who is very, very senior banker, who not only bring money, but also bring value, right? Something that I probably don't understand, they are able to guide me. They act as a mentor, right? So it's very important that we know exactly whom we want to work with. Because as I said, the startup is all about the founder. It is his vision, right? You are not working for a company, so you don't need to follow the CEO or the boss or super boss. It's about your vision, right? Therefore, you got to align people who align with your vision. And for which, I think you got to be clear on your vision. You got to write it down, make it very clear to the market, to the people, and therefore you got a team, be it an employee, be it an agency, who works with you, run at the pace that you want them to, right? So the building team and hiring is not just, as I said, getting people on board, but getting the right people who align to your vision, right? So that's pretty much on building teams. As I said, it's not a very detailed one, but I just highlighted those that I also never realized in my past. So that's the reason, right? So before I jump on to my learnings, I will try to close it in 10-15 minutes. Happy to have things that you guys want, any clarification or anything.
Yeah, that was a excellent presentation sharing your experience. I am Dhanashekaran.
Yeah, hi there.
Yeah, I would like you to go to the product fit slide. I have a clarification. Can you please go back?
Yeah,
Product
sure.
fit. There is 2 slides. Yeah. The previous one, which you showed. No. Product fit. Yeah. Okay. What is that? That one, money from customers is piling up in your company checking account. What does it mean?
No, so basically I'm saying you are not really taking much effort. For example, you bought the first one, you got the second one to buy. So without much effort, the sale is happening. Basically, customers are buying your product time and again and again and again.
Okay.
So brilliant situation, right?
And sales cycle takes too long. What does it mean?
Yeah, so which means if, for example, if you have a product which is so very well made, customer loves it, then you don't need to really hot pitch, right? It sells like hotcakes because they understand the value. You talk to them for a minute and it takes off. But in a product which is not as well built for the market, then you cannot take long time to pitch, explain your value proposition, make the customer to understand. So the cycle becomes too long if you have a product which doesn't fit into the market.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah, my name is Ramaswamy. I am from E&A batch of regarding the startup.
Yes.
How do you pitch in a product? Because I am in the technical sales for the last 25 years.
Okay.
Probably I am also having this option of planning to get into a startup kind of a business, which I don't have prior experience to that. So probably how do you pitch in a product? Can you just, based on your experience, can you just guide me on that?
Yeah. So as I said in the initial first, second, third slide, one, of course, congratulations for even thinking of becoming an entrepreneur. It's really great. And I'm so happy that more and more people are in this space now. So the first thing, now that you are in this space for 25 years, right? I'm sure you have seen multiple problems that your client faces. right?
Yeah.
Small stuff. Like, for example, if we take a case of Zogo, right? He
Yeah.
came up with a very nice idea or a model where he thought, you know what, there's nobody who is serving the SME segments. Everybody is beginning the big companies. There's nobody in the space, and I want to build a model where I'm going to give email solution to the SME clients and so on and so forth, right? So it's all about where do you think in your technology space a gap, right? Where do you think your customers are struggling in your current organization? This is very important for, as I said, it's all about customer first. What is the problem that you want to solve? Once you have that definition, then you can always work backwards to build the product. Right? Since
Yeah, thank you. But suppose if you have, sorry, I'm just extending the question. Suppose you
Sir, I
have
am
something
Govindarajan from
in your
Coimbatore.
passion to
Can
do
I
this kind
brief
of
another
business,
2 minutes how I have
to start up
invented a new
a business
product?
like that, then still we
Hello?
can pursue on that.
Sorry, Mr. Ramasamy. There's so please come back again, Ram. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, Mr.
Sir, I am Govindaraju from
Yes,
Control Engineering, Coimbatore.
Yes, sir.
So I am very much interested to teach how to become an entrepreneur. This is my main subject. Wherever I go, I used to tell this. First, you have to identify what is the problem existing in the market. I went there to a customer's place where I have commissioned on 45 kVA AM panel.
So, Mr. Govindra, I think you are on mute.
Sir, mine is not in mute, sir.
Now we are able to hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are able to hear you.
Yeah, yes, sir. So the customer is a 10,000 square feet house. His service line is in the agri feeder. 18 hours he is having a 2-phase supply. 6 hours only he is having a 3-phase supply. He has purchased 5 ton single phase AC 5 numbers. Each AC is taking 70 amps starting current. I went there for commissioning 45 kVA generator AM panel. The customer was telling, Govindarajan, for 18 hours, I can't run my generator for the residents. Can you give a solution when 2-phase is coming, you make it a 3-phase, single phase, so that I need not use my generator. So I have invented a new product called auto phase selector. I mean, it is a real, input for me. Made 2-phase to 3-phase single phase application. Previously, people are using rotary switch arrangement. For his capacity, rotary switches are not available. So he requested me to invent a new product. Really, I spent 6 months on this product, and I spent nearly 7 lakhs on this project. 2015, I have fixed this product in his house. Even after 6.5 years, this product is working without any problem. Now only I started marketing this product. My concept is fit and forget. So this is the real problem what I have seen in the market. Now everybody is using this rotary switch, and it is not giving any safety to the system, to their electrical system. My product started giving auto phase selection. Even one phase is having high voltage. It gives cut off that particular high voltage phase and gives supply from other 2 phases which are all healthy. So my product is giving protection for high voltage, low voltage, short circuit, and overload. So now I started marketing the product. I'm getting very good overwhelming response from the market. So likewise, you have to identify the problems of the customer. You try to solve the problem, then automatically you will become a best entrepreneur. So this is my personal experience. Thank you for the opportunity given to me.
It's very important that we kind of, as you said, to get a feedback from the customer, build a product which suits him rather than building what we believe is the right thing. I think the great example of customer centricity and product market fit.
Can I ask a question? I'm Ashoka from Salem.
Yes, Mr. Ashoka.
Yeah, my camera is a problem, so I cannot.
Not a problem.
So thank you for the nice presentation. Use a lot of inputs. My question is, suppose I want to market my product. Can I outsource it to some experts who are very good in e-commerce?
See, again, as I said, depends on what product it is. For example, you are building a product of anything that we believe it's a huge B2C opportunity and you do not have the kind of funds, it's fine to go with Amazon, right? Because they are the customer, you probably spend more money, you keep your margin low, but then kind of helps you get more customers. Or just other ways, just in your own area, which is, as I said, is like a pilot, you launch it, test it with some 50, 100 customers, and when it becomes successful, it will going to multiply, right? So it's instead of going to those big companies on day one, trying to get your product across India, it can be a small pilot market in and around, make the product launch, get a feedback, fine tune it. Once you see customers referring others, I think that's when you should be able to scale it up and go to any marketing company, because by then the product is well set. You don't need a hard communication there.
Okay, my question is with regard to the existing product which I'm doing for so many years.
Sure.
Just to expand the market, just I asked you. But my main apprehension is that if I subcontract it, if I outsource it to e-commerce people, they will have the customer base information and other things or data with them. Is it safe?
So they will have your customer information, right? Of course, the thing is today the world has evolved to such extent that you just got to weigh your pros and cons. Instead of you doing on your own, which is obviously going to cost huge money and so on and so forth, it's fine to go through them, because if the customer likes your product, he's going to come back to you only.
Okay.
Right? So you will find a ways and means of reaching out if you don't be available in Amazon, right? So it's fine, because those models do exist for a long time. And there is obviously a risk, but it's worth taking it, because that gives you on day one much bigger reach, which otherwise is going to be very tough to create.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sir, I have a question. Hello?
Yes, come.
Yeah. Actually, this, suppose for the startup, suppose you are going in for a startup, are there any, generally the investors, they come to support us, or we need to invest the money? This is the first question. Second question is, suppose I am looking for a franchisee. I'm getting tied up with some kind of a franchisee, and I want to develop the business for the franchisee. Will it be a good kind of a startup if you look at it from the entrepreneur point of view, sir?
Sure. If I may ask you, what kind of business that you want to get in?
See, franchisee, if you see some kind of food industry related business, so wherein I have not pitched in on the exact product, but the franchises, people are looking for franchisees, in India and abroad also. So probably I may pitch in on some kind of a food processing related franchisee on the footprints, or it will be something related to textiles.
Yeah. So I'm saying you are going to do it on your own and get a franchisee, or you're going to market somebody else's product for a franchisee?
See, franchisee means suppose there is a brand. Already the brand is already introduced in the market.
Okay,
so I'm going to take the franchisee of that brand. I'm going to promote that brand.
Okay, fair enough. Sure. Okay, so two part to your question. Let me just address the first one, which is the investor, right? In today's market, if the idea is very, very strong, right, and there is some bit of demonstration of product market fit, you will be able to raise funds, right? The question is, do I want to raise it on day one, or do I raise it on month 12 or month 24? Recommendation is that you stay put with some angel investors, people that you know of who can probably pitch in money and help you scale. Get your right product market fit, right? Once you believe that you are getting paying customers, Then you go out to the market for fundraise because the valuation then become better. So because initial days, if you go for funding, the valuation will be too small. You need to compromise a lot on the equity. Rather do that hard work for 12, 18 months with the angel funding. And then once your product market fit is brilliant, then you should be able to raise a fund, a pre-series A or a series A.
Okay, it's basically we need to sell the idea, the product idea, and so that you will able to rope in investors, initial investors for the product.
Absolutely. So those will be typically your friends and families or people that you know of, maybe from this network that you're currently talking about, right? So where people believe in you and the idea that you bring into the table, right?
Yes.
That could be not a big money, it's a small sum, right? Which help you to build the product, take it to a market, test it. Once it becomes successful, it's when you go for a PE or a VC fund, which will be like a pre-series A or a series C.
Okay, sir. Sure.
On the franchisee, of course, there are models, but those it's like a franchise India, right? It's been in existence for so many years. It's kind of monopoly in the market. The space is huge. The business is picking up pretty well. But will that be a investment-oriented company? I doubt, because I don't think PEs and VCs will invest in a company which is going to use some other brand for a franchising. But as a business which can make profit, it's a brilliant business. You don't need to look at an investor. The investment is not as big, but the return can be better.
Yeah,
right? So,
generally what I got to know is, suppose if it's a very small scale kind of a business franchisee you are looking at, so the investment will be in the order of somewhere around 5 to 7 lakhs, wherein they will do the entire setup of the retailing or the wholesaling requirement.
Yeah.
And they will, suppose if it is, for example, if it is a food-based industry, what I understand is they will provide us with some kind of chef depending on the product also. They will arrange for that, and they will take care of the marketing aspect, the initial product marketing aspect, to launch the product, all the details, detailing everything. They will take care at the startup. So after that, it is then they hand it over to us to handle the operations for them.
Yeah. Just one word of caution given my experience, right? So whichever franchise that you're going to take, whether it is food or whatever, you got to have some experience because it's a first business.
I agree.
If it's going to be a fourth or fifth business, it's fine. You can venture into something new, right? But the first business has to be something that you have experience, right? For example, I moved away from banking where I was an experience for 25 years, suddenly got into doing education. Looking back, probably is not the right wise decision because it took almost a year for me to understand the industry.
Agreed.
Whereas when I started Finolet, it was like my muscle memory. I know banking all about, so I could ramp up much faster, right? So especially very important that your first business is something that you have far better experience in the past, which helps you to probably become much faster in your growth.
Okay, sure, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Okay. Sure, I think if there's no more questions, then I'll ask Mr. Gopi to take it forward, and if there's anything, we'll be more than happy to answer.
Any further questions?
Yes, Gopi, I have a question.
Yeah, please go on, sir.
Yeah, Krishnan, I don't know whether it is relevant to this session, but I would like to know how to identify a successful startup to think of investing.
Okay. See, now it's if you want to be an investor, there's a lot of forums available, right? There's one, of course, we call this Angel Network. Chennai Angels, Mumbai Angels, Delhi Angels. There's a huge network of investment people who come together, form an organization, and that organization has auditors, people who does due diligence. So you don't need to really do the entire 9 yards. There's a professional team which will come and present to the investor community saying, here are these 10 companies that are good. You may want to look at it, right? So you can join one of those angel communities. And there's also companies like, Y Combinator, Let's Venture. There's a lot of online platform. You can just register you'll be able to listen to a lot of those pitches, right? So it's all well organized. Unlike the past, you don't need to just jump in and invest. You can be part of these communities called Less Ventures, join some of those angels, and listen to the pitches. So you'll be able to pick and choose the one that you want to invest.
Okay, online it is there. You set that out.
Yeah.
Right?
So you can look at Let's Venture. You can join companies like as I said, Chennai Angels. I think there's also a Coimbatore Angels now available.
Okay.
So there's a lot of those companies now available.
So if I search in Google, I will get it. Is it? Chennai
Yes. Yes. Or you can just probably share your mail ID with Gopi. I can send you a lot of those links.
Yeah, sure. I think he must be having. Anyway,
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Gopi, can I get these Mr. Krishnan's contact?
Yes, sir. I will share. Sir, I will share it to you, sir. I will share it.
Oh, thank you.
So, Krishnan sir, with your permission, can I just post your contact in the group itself, sir?
Yeah, please. No problem at all. More than happy.
Yeah. Haripriya, can you just post the contact details?
I'll let me put it on my own. No problem.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Any further questions? Anybody else has a question now? Ramsamy, you just put your hand up. You have anything else to ask?
Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah.
This actually, sir, Mr. Krishnan, how now you see that now all the current marketing trends are going the digital way. So how do you think is it a very good way to market a new startup product? I mean, to get the reach and awareness to the market?
Of course, one obviously, there's a lot of digital revolution. People are using quite a lot of digital methods. It makes a lot of sense. But again, it comes back. You need to decide what is your product that you want to launch. For example, if you look at Finolet, right? I'm going against digital. Right? When I say going against digital, I'm actually saying I'm going to use my Kirana store to distribute. But in the Kirana store, I put in my digital technologies, primarily because the segment that I'm serving, right, is a segment which is not comfortable doing a mobile recharge itself on a phone. They are coming to a shop for a 199 rupees recharge and asking 10 questions saying, what is my data? How long will be the talk time? So on and so forth, right? So expecting him to go to a website, apply for a loan is going to be a real long term, right? So I decided saying, if I am addressing this segment, I got to be in a place where he relates the most, where he visits the most, right? So I picked up the neighborhood store and placed my technologies, right? So it's all about what business that you want to deliver and who is your target segment.
Sure.
Depends on that, you kind of decide saying what is the right mode, right? And
Sure.
if you are now planning to launch something, obviously look for something which is easy to penetrate through digital, because more and more consumers are now on the digital platform.
Sure. And probably it should be able to solve some of the problems of the customers, the product.
Absolutely. See, the whole idea is that you got to figure that problem and take one problem. Because again, learning is that we tend to run on multiple directions, right? You start with one problem statement. Tomorrow morning, you find some other opportunity. And then you realize in 1 year, you're running on 20 different directions, right? So it's very important that you put one problem that you want to chase. They call it as North Star metrics.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that the entire organization begin to solve it.
Sure. Sorry, one last question. I'm sorry, I'm taking your time.
No.
This actually,
job is all about now.
Yeah. This actually, suppose I'm doing a startup. So definitely we need to draw a plan. As you said, we need to have a product. We need to have a structure. How you're going to build the business. We need to have a real core values. You have to define the mission and vision statement of the organization. What is the purpose of your business? Suppose, do you feel that we need to have a proper planning for, let's say, for the first year, for the second year, for the third year kind of a business? Suppose I'm starting this January. I'm just starting a business. Suppose this year my target is I need to achieve this much of the business turnover, and this will be my bottom line. And second year, this will be my growth. I'm prospecting this kind of growth, and this is the structure. I'm going to work on that. And third year, something like that. You need to have a proper plan with 3 or 4 years ahead of you, or probably we need to go step by step.
I think you need to go step by step because it's just still at an idea stage, right? We have to build the product, we got to take the market, take the feedback, right? Only thing that you got to be very clear is that you got to keep a cash runway at least for 12 to 18 months. Have the corpus built either through angel or through your own. So keep your cash burn limited till you got your product accepted by the customers.
Okay.
Then you can start putting up the entire P&L in terms of what is that you want to do on year 1, year 2, year 3. But till such time where it is an idea becoming a reality, right? So you are working more on taking to a market, understanding the market feedback and working on that. So all that you got to keep focusing that time is keep your cost low. Right. So as I keep telling, right, when I moved away from banking, the first thing that I was learning is unlearning what I was doing in banking. A simple example is in a bank, you enter, you certainly have everybody to serve your coffee, everything is there, right? But in a startup, I can't afford to have someone who can serve me coffee. That's going to cost me $15,000. So I said, fine, let me start serving, preparing my own coffee. So you start looking at those because in a startup, it's not about you burning money from day one. So the day you think the people are paying fees for you to take your service, then yes, you can start scaling. So till such time, cash burn is very, very critical. You got to keep it very, very low and do as much as possible to ensure you don't burn so much cash in the earlier days.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ankalekar, NS Murthy, sir, any questions? Sarana Kumar, Arun?
You are supposed to share your experience, please.
Sure. Sure. I just thought it's probably running out of time, so I don't want to.
No, you can go on, sir. You can go on, sir.
Sure. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll just put up my. It's not significant, but I thought probably a few things that could help because I also heard someone saying that I want to quit my corporate and start my company, right? So, is the presentation visible now?
Yeah, it's visible. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if I look at myself, right, and as I said, I started from ANZ and then went on running again multiple banks and launching stuff. So in the entire process, I kept asking myself, saying, am I happy doing what I'm doing? And second, what is that I'm running big at, right? And then the typical answers that I got for myself is that I'm just following what the conventional route is. I'm just following what everybody believes is the right thing, right? I'm so happy sharing my visiting card which says, Director Deutsche, right? So I was more looking at those things which I believe was my identity, right? So that's to me is what kept me running, which obviously while I was keep thinking about it time and again, I realized that's not something that I want me to be identified with, right? I want to do something that I believe I'm very passionate about, right? So I realized that there's much more to life than what I was doing, right? It's not because I suddenly woken up like Swami Vivekananda one day and then realized it's because I attended quite a few classes as part of my Deutsche, various meets, met people, met so many of them who did their own startup, met so many of them who probably failed, but then I could see the passion in the way they speak, the kind of happiness that they carried vis-a-vis what we were doing in a bank, right? So typically in a bank, we meet up all your VPs and AVPs and directors. And I know people who are outside the bank, looking at the bank, thinking, saying, what, these guys are big, driving big cars, making money. But then inside the bank, everybody's feeling so unhappy all the time. There's very few souls who are very happy with what they are doing. Otherwise, everybody thinks, saying, outside world is so brilliant compared to what they are, right? So there's always constant dilemma in terms of what is that you're doing? Are you liking what you're doing, right? And as I said, because we all run behind the position, we all running behind the visiting card that we share with people. So there are very few people who then decide saying, okay, enough is enough. And then I realize saying all that I got to do is just walk away from the front door and saying, thank you so much, enough of the corporate. I think that did happen ultimately. I was fortunate enough to take that call at that time. And obviously the first experience from families and friends, right? So typically because you're residing as a director, Deutsche, multiple countries, suddenly coming back to Chennai, setting up a small office, a lot of them thought was something wrong, right? Maybe that the bank has sacked him, right? Maybe that something went wrong. He doesn't like his boss. And of course, there are colleagues who said, boss, brilliant, because this is something that I want to do, but I just don't find courage to do it. Someone said, you know what, I want to wait and watch and see how Krishnan does, and probably, look at taking those calls, right? So multiple views, multiple, feedbacks, but I got my belief on, right? I said, it's not that the transition was so easy. It's not that it was so tough. It's all about our mindset, right? One of them in the call said, I want to resign. I want to start my own. I think that itself is the first thought. And also, let me just warn you, our friend, entrepreneurship is not about the way I said in the first slide. He's saying, I want to become rich and I want to become powerful, right? It's about pursuing something that you are very passionate about. It's about you doing something that you feel so happy about doing, right? It's not about chasing money, right? Money is a byproduct. As long as you are happy what you are doing, I think money do come in place. That's not a problem. But it's all about, do you have the clarity of mind, thought in your mind to say, you know what, enough is enough. I don't want to be happy saying that I'm a VP or I'm a director. I want to be happy for myself, where I look forward to going to office, right? I feel bad on a Sunday because the office is closed, right? So that's the kind of thought process has to be crystal clear, because once you jump in, you are set to face challenges, because it's not easy road ahead. It's not that you jump in today and tomorrow you get a $2 million funding like a thread, right? Doesn't happen. Maybe it could happen for a few people, but not for everybody, right? So you are setting yourself up for a much difficult, unexplored route as compared to a current stage where everything is happy, at least from outside. You get your salary, you have a team to report to, you don't bother about, whether the office is clean, you don't bother about filing a PF. All that you are bothered about is your own KRA, right? But as an entrepreneur, you are worried about everything. You are worried about paying the rent, you are paying the electricity, hundreds of things that you are worrying about, right? So it's very, very important that in our mind, you are very clear saying, you know what, I am done with this corporate. I want to do something on my own, knowing well that I am going to go through a tough but probably most satisfying journey, right? So it's very important that you do that. Also critical that you start running past your thoughts with people that you believe, right? Probably people that in your family who are like your mentor, maybe with people who have done those calls in the past. Talk to them, understand, saying how easy or difficult, because jumping from a corporate to entrepreneur is just a decision, right? But what happens after that is a long road. So you kind of need to spend the time, write down for yourself, and then make up your mind saying, you know what, I am not going to jump and do that, right? It's very, very important that take the time before you jump. And then obviously I'm not putting, any slide. I just take probably 5 minutes each of each of these two different journeys. The first one that I started is Eat Train India. It's been a brand that was recognized by Economic Times as the best education brand in 2017. And as we speak, the company continues to run pretty well, right? I did exit it about 3 years back before I started my Finolet. So for Eat Train India, it's my first business to say. It's my first child. So when I quit banking, and I was always passionate about teaching, right? Obviously, I had my Chittappa that I looked up to was very passionate in teaching. I seen him talking to students and so on and so forth. So I also thought, okay, this is something that I want to do. I want to bring back something to the society that I come from, right? Even in Deutsche, we used to do a lot of the CSR activities. I used to go down south, talk to colleges, realize the knowledge out there is lacking much, much more compared to what we thought is, right? So I started this company, right? It took almost a year for me to transform from a corporate, right? As I said, in the first 2-3 months, I used to keep flying. If there's a meeting in Delhi, I don't think twice. I just catch a flight, land up, come back. And then I realized after 3-6 months that, it's not a Deutsche, right? I can't afford to spend money like this because you can't run a business like this. You got to really evaluate the rationale, got to figure out the reason as to why you should spend that money. So a lot of learnings in the first 6 months of what not to do, unlearn what I did from my banking career, and transforming to become an entrepreneur. And when I say these examples, it doesn't mean I'm saying don't spend money, right? I'm not saying you run your company from a platform. That's not the case. All I'm saying is be conscious of what you're spending. Even that 1 rupee that you're going to spend, think twice, because there's no ever-ending pipe available, right? Because in a corporate, you don't really bother. You have hundreds of crores in your disposal, you keep spending, making money out of it, right? But in a startup, it's not that. It's your money or it's your investor money. It's limited, not ever-ending, right? So it's got to be very, very careful on the money that you spend, why you are spending, what you are spending on, right? And second, as I said, the biggest learning is that what I believe is the right product, which I talked about in the past, certification from Microsoft for the young kids, vis-a-vis what the market perceived, right? And that's again a learning for me where we said, fine, it's important that you got to talk to the market, understand before you believe in the product that you want to build. So that kind of helped us. We got back to Adobe or Microsoft or maybe HP, build products and training programs which matches the market, which was the need of the hour. Like, for example, there's a program on software testing. Everybody was teaching, and then I realized people are teaching us theory, right? So we've been taught what software testing is, but nobody really had an hands-on experience. So when I asked the student saying, would you like to pay 5,000 rupees? His answer was saying, no, I will pay 5,000, give me a certificate, right? I don't want to learn because you don't get to learn. So then we came up with the idea saying, you know what, for software testing, HP will give us software free. You actually work hands-on, and instead of 5,000, we are getting 15,000 rupees, and our pretty much the turnover went skyrocketing, right? And it's a software which is available with HP. There's no extra cost for them, and then they're very happy about it, right? So it's very important that we keep listening to the market. Transition from a corporate to a business is not as simple. As I said, you just got to unlearn what you learned over the last 20-25 years in the corporate, right? And before you jump, decide what is the solution, what is the problem that you're going to solve, right? So it's very important. And also don't keep so passionate about what you're doing, because it's not about, for example, somebody was telling me saying, you know what, would you like to exit Finola today, start something new? Answer to the question is saying, fine, I don't mind, because it's not something that you want. Because the more you attach to the company, you tend to overlook problems, right? You tend to think that what you're doing is right, and therefore you don't want to listen to anything which is wrong, right? So it's very important that you keep a step away from the company that you're building. Keep listening to the feedbacks, criticism. That's the only thing that will help you learn, right? So Eat India, the bigger learning for me was that I was trying to build a distribution. It's basically an education distribution company. We work with computer institutes, make them a partner of Microsoft. And at the end of 2 years, I realized my churn rate was as high as 60%, right? So I appoint somebody in, say, Thuthukudi, and next year he says, so I'm not interested because, I don't find students here, right? So that's something that we learn in the year 2, year 3, that we are running all the time, getting more institutes, training them, but not realize the end user, right? We never worried about the end user. We only worried about getting the new partner on board, right? So that really become a bottleneck where we not really looked at the churn from the customer side, only from the distributor that we looked at, right? So we did evolve the model, and as I said, we went on to become the biggest APAC partner for our principal companies. We become the big education brand. And that's when I realized saying, yeah, it's good to be in the education business, but somewhere back of the mind, I thought I'm probably good at being on the banking, learned over 25 years. What is that I should do using that knowledge, right? And also the knowledge that I gained on Eat India, which is setting up a distribution. So that's when I came to Finolet, build a new model called Digital. There again, I would say there is a learning every month, every day, right? Because I said we are listening to customers. We are ensuring that the feedback is so open, coming back to us day in, day out. When we started with the loan product, right? I said we signed up a merchant who could be your neighborhood Kirana store, make him to start offering a loan product. Then, because we kept hearing, we kept asking customers for feedback, we've been told by the customers saying, you know what, I would like to have a loan which is Insta, right? You know, I want to take a 5,000 rupees. Maybe I'm driving an auto, I have a flat tire, I want to change the tire, and I want a 5,000 rupees. And there's no bank which can give me lending, right? So we said, fine, what if we start a Insta loan product using the banking? So we are today doing that, right? Today we are delivering a 5,000 rupees loan from an outlet, which is become a hot selling product rather than a 5 lakh rupee loan. Then we also realize that the customers that we are selling are people who are not really aware of what the credit is all about. So because nobody is talking to them saying, how should you maintain your credit? Why should you take a loan? There's no education, right? So we are now creating a separate wing, which is focusing only on customer education. It's free. We believe it's help us engage the customer. So if you look at from a true business sense, it doesn't make sense to invest money in educating customer, right? Because that's how the businessman will look at. But we believe that that's the one big gap, because the customer don't know how to select. He doesn't know the banking. He doesn't know the interest rate. We believe it's important that we bring that value, make him understand. So in the process, he's going to be with Finolet forever, right? So those are the learnings. I think the bottom line is that jumping from a corporate, it takes time for you to learn. It takes time for you to make those mistakes. Be patient, be at it, right? As I said, spend the time before you jump. Think about it, run it past with your mentors, identify the problem before you jump, right? Having jumped, be focused on your cost, because it's very, very important that you conserve cash for you to help scale. And of course, be on the ground, keep listening, and keep fine-tuning the model until you really get your product market fit, right? So those are like real top takeaways. Obviously open to answer. We just got 5 more minutes to go. So,
sir, one last question. Ram here.
Yeah, please, Ram.
Yeah, it was a great sharing of your learnings. It was really an insight for me also. So just to see the valuable tips, what we need to caution. I mean, it was a caution for us, what we need to look out when you go for a new startup.
Yeah.
Just one last question. I just chatted also with you, but okay, I'll just ask that question. How do you? I have no prior experience in an entrepreneurship or a startup. So how do you think the role of mentorship in this case? Like, for example, if I have a good mentor, what role does he have to play in a startup that wherein I have no prior experience?
Yeah, see, it's become all the more important when you don't have that experience and you're jumping from a corporate. Mentorship makes a lot of difference. It's like what you call, someone that you can talk to, someone who can really listen to what you want to say and give you the right direction. Because given a choice, we will think something is right, you start jumping and start doing it. It's important that you have those what you call sounding boards, right? You bounce off your ideas, they will tell you what is right, what is not right. But most important, when you have a mentor, we should keep ourselves open to listen to those. Because we normally tend to have this saying, no, I know what I'm doing, right? So in that case, mentorship probably doesn't work. So when you go to a mentor, you kind of keep your ears open, listen to the ideas, and as rightly said, it's very critical that you have a mentor in place. Talk to them before you do anything, right? Because they have seen it all. They have gone through this pain. They have seen people failing. They have seen people succeeding. So they at least have something that they know better than us, right? So it's very, very important that you keep a mentor who could probably help you guide in your entrepreneurship journey.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Anyone else has a question?
Gopi, do we have time?
Yes, sir. One last question you can ask, sir.
And then give the priority to somebody else. It is.
You can ask, sir. You can go on, sir. Don't worry, sir.
Okay, Mr. Krishnan,
Yes.
You have a very good experience in startups. Give me a rough idea. What is the percentage of startups are successful? Say total 100 startups are coming. In India today, what is the percentage of success?
Okay.
Approximately, a vague idea.
Yeah, I'll give you some statistics, but my recommendation is don't go by those, because ultimately it's the startup, as I said, is your reflection. Typically in India, the statistics says 75% companies get shut in the first year. That's reality, right? So out of 100 companies, 75 get shut on year one. It's not because they're not viable, not because they just started because they want to be an entrepreneur, right? So when you are going to start where you really thought about, I'm sure it is not part of your 75%. So statistics obviously says, the unicorn numbers, right? Very hard and few, right? Even that you got headlines on Economic Times saying 49 companies have become unicorn, right? But every minute there are 50 companies get registered. So it's, to me, I think the statistics is fine, right? It's kind of caution you, make you more hard before, right? So it's I would say maybe 5% of the companies remains there to see the 10th year. 90% gets signed up after that over the 10 years. And there's also a myth that if you get a Series A, which is typically between 2 million to 10 million, that you will survive. 65% of those companies get shut, right? What happened is, because we are all, I would say that people like you are, we have seen, right? We are mature. If you are a young kid that you start a company, 2 years down the line, you suddenly got 35 crores in the account, you tend to spend more, right? You start running on multiple directions. That's what makes the company to fail. So as long as you remain focused on that one goal, what you call nostalgics, there is 99% probability that the company will succeed.
Okay. Thank you.
Suppose you have made a startup and you have failed. How to approach that failure at that moment, sir? I mean, probably all the startups probably are not successful in the first attempt. You need to really reinvent yourself to be in the and perceive to be in the business and continue the startups so that it grows into a good organization.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I'm saying, obviously in a startup, when you say failure, to me, it's not a failure. It's just something that we believe is not done right. We haven't found our product market fit. So you kind of keep constantly innovate, continue to be at it till you really get that recipe right? But having said, it's not very, as I said, it's not about you getting failed or not. You are at it all the time. You are reinventing all the time. I just some of the business that I did in between India and Finolet, there are a few which never work. Probably it's very important that when you fail fast. So for example, you start a company, it took 4 years for you to fail, then you kind of really lost serious amount of time and money, right? That's why I'm saying it's very important that you got to understand the failure in 3-6 months. And that's when you call failure, it's about the product not meeting the market expectation. I said in a startup, there's nothing called failure. It's just that I found a solution which is not a solution that market is looking for. And therefore, when you are taking that solution to the market and you're listening to the market, you get to know in the third 6 months saying, no, this is not the solution. I got to change it. I got to paint a different picture. I got to probably do something else. So it's very important that when you fail, we fail fast so that you kind of reinvent yourself and start all over again.
Yeah.
Any further questions? I think we are done, sir.
Thank
So
you.
thank
so
you,
much.
thank you, Mr. for the outstanding. Your perspective really refreshing, and it was exceptionally stimulating and informative too. Thanks all for participating in this lively Sunday morning session. I hope you all found it useful and takeaways from it. Such interactive sessions would not be a success without you all. Really, really thankful to everyone for having participated today. Hope you all enjoy your Sunday and stay safe. Thank you.